Gambia Writers Association has revealed the names of the most influential writers in the country. Ebola infections in DR Congo continue to rise in provincial areas in the north. And Mali's military junta fails to reach a deal with ECOWAS envoys during transitional talks. Well, these and more coming on the world today. Many thanks for joining us, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin on Africa TV. I am Amadou Kante, and now the news in detail. Now, the Writers Association of the Gambia has on Monday released a list of 100 people it said are the most influential writers in the country. The list represents 3 generations of Gambian writers from Dr. Larry Peters to today's younger generation. Our Mark will have more details of that in this report.
For so many years, Gambia's literature and prominent writers have not been recognized by Gambians as great works and great writers. People were dependent on foreign materials and books, though these writers have put efforts in their works and some were even recognized in other countries and not their own. But the Writers Association wants to change this, as it compiled and released the 100 most influential Gambian writers whose works were recognized internationally. Modolamin H. Al-Musaf Sow, the Secretary General of the Writers Association of the Gambia, said in an interview that the list includes poets and spoken word artists who have created a significant impact in the lives of people.
It will have a very huge impact for those who we have listed in the list, because it will help Gambian people to recognize our own talents and also begin to buy their books. Not also withstanding, it will give us the dignity, the ability to not only patronize the works of Gambian authors, but to respect them as writers, because, you know, the list featured, among others, notable scholars and prolific Gambian writers like Professor Suleiman Nyang. Professor Suleiman S. Nyang, who died in the United States, is a renowned Gambian scholar. People like Professor Dr. Lamin Isane. If you go to Ghana, a whole university, a whole city has been designated in his name. But in the Gambia, nobody knows about him. Even when he died, nothing was done here. We need to recognize people right now, not when they die. We should stop awarding people when they die. Lyndon Peters is not alive, yes, but let's assume that there are people who are doing extremely well like him, and they deserve that recognition now, not when they die. You want to buy 10 bags of rice, you want to say, XYZ was the best Gambian writer. It doesn't work. So I think it is worthy of emulation and celebrations.
A 22-year dictatorship that was anti-academic and freedom of expression did not help create the needed exposure of Gambian writers, and some were forced to flee. Now there are over 400 writers, poets, and spoken word artists registered under the umbrella bodies of creative writing, the intellectuals that wish to change people's perception towards reading Gambian books. So explains the association's selection process of these most influential writers was done.
The motive behind the selection is that we're using a very rigid criteria. And the criteria is that, one, you have to get international acclaim. Meaning, if you publish a book or books, the book must receive international acclaim. That is one criteria. Number 2, we are looking at those who are contributing or have contributed positively to the development of the Writers Association of the Gambia. Number 3, we are looking at also those who have individually contributed towards the educational or literary development of the Gambia as an individual. There are people who might not publish books, but they are doing spoken word poetry, or they are writing, or they are publishing newspaper articles. They are all writers, they write depending on their work, but they might not have published books, so we thought it's also important. And the last criteria, number 4, is that one must publish at least a book. At least, just a book, to be included in the list.
Since inception in 2009, the Writers Association of the Gambia has been conducting a series of book launching, poetry and writing competition to raise interest in Gambians' literary works. In 2016, the literary sector took a huge dimension with succeeding stories as more books were published by Gambian authors. The Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education also contributed to the recent success of the literary industry by introducing books written by Gambians to schools. For iAfrica TV News, Awamakalu.
Gambia Writers Association, they are celebrating influential writers in the country. And from that report, next we head to DR Congo, because as the world battle against the COVID-19 pandemic, health professionals in DR Congo are yet again confronted with the Ebola diseases, with the number of cases increasing in the northern part of the country. Since the emergence of the disease in June, the World Health Organization has expressed concern of accessibility of most of affected areas due to the poor network in the region. The country's authorities are seeking financial support from aligned partners in the fight against diseases in the country. Here's more details of that.
The number of Ebola cases in the DRC's northwestern province of Equator has doubled over the past 5 weeks. 100 cases have been recorded since the outbreak was announced on June 1st, and the disease has now spread to 11 health zones in the area. The World Health Organization has expressed concern about the further spread of the disease because it has occurred in a remote area with dense rainforests which are difficult to access.
Sequencing is currently in progress. Preliminary results show very interesting information that will be released soon and shows that this epidemic is completely different from the previous one in the same province. One of the particularities of this epidemic is also that the surveillance have been reinforced very quickly in the neighboring area, which has also allowed the detection of many cases and many outbreaks in remote villages.
The response has also been set back by an ongoing strike by local health workers who are demanding their unpaid salaries. The workers have been supporting foreign health experts to contain the disease. A shortage of funding has added problems to the existing challenges. The Congolese government is battling other epidemics like COVID-19 and has appealed for more funding from donors. The outbreak in Equator province is the 11th to occur in the DRC since 1976.
And from the report there in DR Congo, next to Mali, because discussions between ECOWAS regional bloc and the military junta that overthrew Mali's former president Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta ended without reaching an agreement regarding the country's return to civilian transition rule. Fatma Fati has more details of that in this report.
Talks between the military officials and a delegation of ECOWAS leaders have ended in Bamako without an agreement on how the West African country should return to civilian rule. The spokesman for the National Committee for the Salvation of the People, a committee of officers who overthrew President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, said that any decision to be taken related to the issues of the transition will be decided by Malians. Colonel Ismail Wage told the press after 3 days of discussion with West African mediators that all political parties and union will take part in the process of decision-making.
Décision relative à la taille de la transition.
Any decision related to the extent of transition, the transition of the president to the forming of the government, will be decided among Malians with the political parties, socio-political groups, the unions, the signatory groups, the civil society, in accordance with our first declaration. I want to assure everyone that no decision about the transition will be taken without this massive consideration. Nothing has been decided with our team of arbitrators.
Colonel Wage also said that their meeting discussed security conditions of ex-President Keïta and that the sub-regional bloc ECOWAS wants these conditions eased so that Keïta can seek medical attention abroad if he wants.
Our objective during the discussion was to ask that the security conditions of Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta be lightened and that he is authorized to get medical treatment. That specific point of discussion was accepted, so he can be secured in a place of his choice and he will be able to get treatment and come back whenever he wishes. ECOWAS has guaranteed his return in case it is needed, so it does not represent a problem.
Mali's President Keita was forced to step down after an army mutiny on August 18 took advantage of months of popular protest against his government and seized power. But on Monday, the head of ECOWAS delegation, Goodluck Jonathan, said Keita voluntarily relinquished power because he was no longer interested in being president.
And Keita said, look, he has resigned. He was not forced to resign, but he has resigned and he is not interested in governance again.
This is the second that ECOWAS mediation talks have failed to reach an agreement with parties in Mali's political unrest. In July, 5 West African leaders failed to reach an agreement between the government and opposition protesters on how to resolve the country's crisis. For iAfrica TV, Fatmata Fati.
And from the report there on the political situation in Mali, we come back home because vendors in Brikama, 38 kilometers southwest of the Gambian capital Banjul, have expressed their frustration over the poor sanitary conditions in some parts of the town's market. The fish vendors who pay daily duties to the area council are particularly affected by the poor sanitation and have criticized it for not collecting the garbage. Khadija Zuseka has more details of that in this report.
On daily cleansing around the markets, but it is also important to note that you have certain markets that are within the management of a particular community. You understand? And let's this not clarify as to say we basically, if any market that is not within under council's management, therefore we will not reach there. No, I'm not saying in that way, but I think it is important for people to understand there are certain markets that are not within the management of the council. But notwithstanding, as the sanitation of the cleanliness of our environment is vested within our powers, we equally do our efforts to make sure we reach out to markets, to public places, big towns, big villages, to make sure we do some cleansing exercise there on a routine basis.
Vendors in Brikama, they are raising concerns over the sanitary situation in the market, and from that development, we will now take a break and come back shortly with the remaining of the story. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin on iAfrica TV. And now to the rest of the stories, to the COVID-19 update now, because the number of fatalities for the COVID-19 continues to rise in the Gambia, with the latest situation report from the Health Ministry reporting 3 new COVID-19 deaths on Tuesday, taking the total number of casualties to 90. According to the Ministry, more than 600 people have also recovered from the virus. Desise reports. And we hope to bring you the report of that situational of the COVID-19 in the Gambia in our subsequent news edition. And from that, we move on, because lockdowns and limitations of movement to cope the spread of the COVID-19 have minimized terrorism attacks in many countries, but it also allows terrorist groups like ISIS to regroup, amplify their activities in the Middle East. Ibrahima Jones reports.
One positive impact that the coronavirus has presented to a worried world is the significant reduction of terrorist attacks in known conflict zones. However, the Under-Secretary General of the UN Office on Counter-Terrorism, Vladimir Voronkov, informed the Security Council on Monday that Baghdad and Damascus face a threat from extremist groups because the pandemic has given them an opportunity to regroup.
Since the start of the year, we have seen contrasting regional disparities in the threat trajectory. In conflict zones, the threat has increased, as evidenced by ISIL's regrouping and increasing activity in Iraq and the Syrian Arab Republic, and among some of its regional affiliates. However, in non-conflict zones, the threat appears to have decreased in the short term. Measures to minimize the spread of COVID-19, such as lockdowns and restrictions on movement, seem to have reduced the risk of terrorist attacks in many countries.
While ISIS appears to have been defeated from an American point of view, the United States ambassador to the UN, Kelly Craft, said there must be unified efforts to make sure that the family members of detained foreign fighters will not emerge to continue the fight. She said that terrorist fighters must be prosecuted for the heinous crimes they committed.
Even though ISIS and its so-called caliphate have been defeated on the battlefield, we must work together to ensure that the population of detained foreign terrorist fighters, as well as their family members displaced in Syria and Iraq, do not become a nucleus of an ISIS 2.0. We share the Secretary General's deep concerns regarding the thousands of foreign terrorist fighters and their family members, most of whom are young children, who are still in camps and detention facilities. Foreign terrorist fighters must face prosecution and accountability for their crimes, and we need to rehabilitate and reintegrate family members so a new generation of ISIS fighters does not emerge.
The drop in terrorist activities outside the Middle East may have come as a result of an ISIS travel advice issued in March this year. The Islamic State, which was formed in 2004 by ex-Al-Qaeda militant Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi and came to prominence in 2011 when the Syrian civil war started, told jihadists to avoid coronavirus-hit countries. Reporting for iAfrica TV, I am Ibrahim John.
And from the report there by Ibrahim John, as you heard, and of course we come back home and go back to Brikama again, because it has been 3 weeks since the fire outbreak that destroyed shops and life investment at the Brikama market. Africa TV finds victims of the fire are crying for help and amid financial constraints that are having a chilling effect in their capacity to meet house and basic family needs. Ibrahim Sonko reports.
3 weeks after the fire outbreak that burned down shops at the Brikama market, life has yet to return to normal for businessmen like Bakar Mas, a tailor. Mas and other people who lost their shops at the fire are struggling to make ends meet. They have problems meeting their rent and other bills. He said they need help.
We are experiencing difficulties. Most of us feed our families with our daily sales. Some of us are renting houses and it has been difficult to pay rental fees. It disturbed us because we do not have any help from anyone since the outbreak happened.
In the absence of help from the Brikama Area Council, the government and the NGOs, Mas and other victims have decided to start the reconstruction of their stalls last week.
We are
constructing this because we have to. If not, our situation will be worsened. If you use what all is left to you to buy cement blocks and gravel sands, what will you be left with? And we are breadwinners of our families. But we later agreed to start construction and do what we could do. And if we stuck, we could help one another to complete the work. That is what we could do.
Our Sow, a cosmetic seller, appealed to the government and NGOs to come to their aid. She told iAfrica TV that she could not even pay her house rent due to the financial constraint caused by the fire outbreak.
Our children's academics, their living, our daily needs, and our rental bills are all taken care of from the sales and profits we used to make from our sales. So if that stops, it could escalate our difficulties. I could not even pay my last month's rental fee because I do not have money.
The public relations officer of Brikama Area Council, Lamin Singate, told iAfrica TV that this council has established a task force to investigate the fire outbreak. He said the council will act upon the recommendation of the findings of the task force.
After the outbreak of the fire, there is a body comprising of all the regional stakeholders that come together and were tasked to look at the cause of the fire and the extent of damage that been caused at the market. So as we speak, these people are still on their work. They are yet to be ready to present a detailed report surrounding the matter. So basically that's where we are, and that report is going to determine the steps or further steps that council need to take in partners or in collaboration with various stakeholders to make sure situation of such kinds is being averted.
At least 35 shops were burned to ashes in the 2nd August fire outbreak at the Brikama market, with cars and other valuables destroyed. The victims said the fire may have been caused by faulty electrical wires. This is the second devastating fire incident at the Brikama market in a year. Reporting for iAfrica TV, I'm Ibrahim Kebi Sonko.
Victims of the fire outbreak in Brikama some 3 weeks ago are still calling for support from the government. Now, from that report finally to Kenya, because thousands of Kenyans were displaced as heavy flooding from water rising levels destroyed their homes thanks to a heavy downpour of rain in the area. The victims residing about 320 kilometers away from the capital are now calling for support after such a devastation hit their settlements. Well, according to experts, the recent flooding might have been due to the global warming, but man-made effects are also associated with the causes. Here's more details of that in this report.
Residents who live around Lake Baringo, a freshwater lake about 320 kilometers from the capital Nairobi, have different theories on why water levels have risen exponentially. Some blame the rain.
Every evening, in the morning, at night, we are experiencing rain.
Others, like Esther Cheritoy, whose house has been submerged, puts it down to geographical activity.
Earthquake every day, 4-5 times a day.
You see, what is certain is the swelling lake has expanded about 6 kilometers inland, engulfing everything in its path and displacing thousands. As her neighbors salvage what's left of their property, Esther is still unable to access her home. Help has yet to arrive.
We need iron sheets to rebuild our homes, and secondly, we need food.
A boat ride inland reveals the extent of the devastation. Hundreds have lost their livelihoods as farmlands and businesses, including hotels and schools, have been swallowed by the lake.
Along the shores, there are hotels like Soy Lodge. 100 employees have lost their job.
And Lake Baringo is not the only body of water affected. 5 of Kenya's lakes that straddle the Rift Valley have risen to levels not witnessed before and are still rising.
And what their germination?
Experts say that while global warming may have played a role, the problem is man-made.
All our water comes from the Mao forest and the forest around Eldama Ravine. And all those areas are being chopped down. So basically what is happening is that we're getting flash floods coming down. And plus a lot of silt. So the silt is bringing the bottom of the lake up.
As if the COVID-19 pandemic was not enough, the swelling lake has flooded the local health center at Gambia, Samaki. In early 2019, I was in this same area covering a drought that claimed dozens of lives, claimed hundreds of animals, and left thousands of people dependent on humanitarian assistance. Now, it's not uncommon to find locals fishing by the highway. From one extreme to another, having lost everything, many here face an uncertain future.
And that report there in Kenya eventually brings this news bulletin to an end. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, you can log on our website on iafrica.tv. You can also join my colleague Sona Tunkara at 19:30 GMT or 7:30 local time for the Gambia 24 News Bulletin. But for now, many thanks for the pleasure of your company and of course for watching as well. Until we meet again, do have a pleasant afternoon. Bye from me. Bye-bye.